Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. McIntire Retirement Services, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement, with your resource for a common sense approach to planning for your financial, investment, and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Chris McIntire here with us once again, providing some education, information, and insight into planning for your financial future, achieving those important financial goals. And today, Chris, talking about one of the most commonly utilized tools to do so, our 401ks.
Yep, 401k, very popular avenue for saving for retirement, investing. A lot of win-win situations here with the 401ks, not to say that they don't have some drawbacks as well. And we'll get into that on today's show.
Yeah, things that are certainly advantageous with the 401k, but also some things to know and be aware of. Sometimes those things that we don't know can cause missteps or missed opportunities. So we'll talk about both on today's program, all the advantages, the things that you should be doing, and some things to watch out for when utilizing that 401k at your employer, at the job. If you have any questions, if you would like to speak with a qualified, experienced professional and get some guidance on what you should be doing with your 401k, you are always welcome to be in touch with Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services. Yes, they do start the planning process early, and those conversations about how to plan for retirement should start on day one of our employment, and certainly as we are enrolling in those benefits. But if you are building your retirement wealth inside of a 401k or other company sponsored plan, this program is for you. We'll talk about those, and you can always get that guidance, personalized, individual for you, by calling McIntire Retirement Services, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And I suppose that's a good place to start, Chris, is that generically we refer to these plans as 401k plans, but there are actually some subset and subsidiary types of plans that may be one-off or applicable to certain professions that sort of fall under the same general category.
Yes, and it's a, very generic for us just to say, well, my 401k, which is a company sponsored plan offered by for-profit institutions. Teachers, for example, would have a 403b, basically a lot of the same similarities, but they work for nonprofits. Nurses sometimes have that, depending upon the hospital they work at. There are a number of other elaborate plans that are available. I'm self-employed. We have just a few employees, so we use a SEP IRA plan for our business. We have a client that they use a simple IRA. So all different types of businesses. And, for us using the SEP IRA, that's about cost. It's very cheap. A 401k, you've got some IRS requirements. You have some reporting things that need to happen. And, typically that works better for a little larger institution, if you will, Peter.
So for the purpose of the program today, though, sort of generically referring to all of these different choices and options, maybe under the description of 401k, just understand that it may be different based on your employer, your employment situation, and probably, Chris, always wise to check with the specifics of your company plan.
Yep, no question about it there. You want to get some expert advice on which one is best for your particular situation if you're an employer.
All right. And if you are an employee, you have a 403b or a TSP, that is what is available at your job site. Again, know that we are talking about your plan, even if we generically utilize the term 401k. So Chris, into the advantages, disadvantages. Big time advantage is that the savings actually gets done. And I think that's what we like most about our 401k plans, is that we can set them up and then they're sort of on autopilot.
Yeah, and they take some of the procrastination that us human beings can do away from things. It's a payroll deduction for many of the folks listening to the radio show today. And it comes out of your payroll, which makes it very easy. It's kind of like that's how you pay your taxes by and large. And I think if you had to pay taxes like Peter and myself do, we have to make quarterly payments. You'd probably have a distaste for the government like we do, because you you have to write those checks instead of having come out of your payroll, if you
Indeed,
will.
I was going to say it too. But Chris, with the retirement savings, once we bring the money home, it seems a lot more challenging and difficult to actually get it into those retirement accounts. So the fact that we can do that automatically, out of sight, out of mind, before we even see the money, makes it more achievable and achieved at a much, much higher rate.
Yes, no question about it. And then from the investment side, they pull money out of your check every other week for most people. I think biweekly is pretty common. And that money goes into the 401k and it goes into whatever asset mix you have. And, if prices are down, you're buying more. If prices are high, you're buying less. We call that dollar cost averaging, and a very good way to work money into the stock market over the long haul. So a win-win comes out of your check. And it's also a good strategy, the way that it gets laddered into the stock and bond market, if you will.
Now, as mentioned, we'll talk about benefits and disadvantages, and while that automatic, systematic, out of sight, out of mind nature of the 401k, we've highlighted a couple of advantages of that. Chris, it is also so out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes we sort of forget about routine maintenance and the things that we should be doing with those dollars. So a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, certainly can be. And it's very easy to, load up on one particular fund because, a lot of people, let's be honest, don't pay much attention to it. And sometimes that can be a good thing as well, to talk out on both sides of this here. Sometimes you can overmanage your account. Sometimes you can undermanage your account. And so if you want to stay in some sort of a balanced portfolio, you have to make sure that those biweekly contributions are, mashed up with your overall goals and risk tolerances, Peter.
And sometimes, Chris, so out of sight, out of mind that we forget about it altogether. There are a lot of old 401ks that have sort of been orphaned and left behind.
Yeah, there certainly are, because people change jobs here. Companies go, get bought by other companies and they get absorbed into other companies' retirement plan. So you might have 2 or 3 old 401ks or 403bs laying out there. And we help people aggregate them together all of the time. And, not just, very rarely anymore does somebody work at a company for 40 years, the whole career. And if you do, heck, even that company may have changed it's gone from Fidelity to Vanguard or something along those lines. And, you have to go through and actually move that money into the new plan if you haven't already. So a lot of times that aggregation can simplify things for you.
And Chris, not necessarily a difficult process, but one that has certain specific steps and requirements, and one that you don't want to mess up because it could cost you unnecessarily. So that's a big area where you do help and assist savers and investors and clients in aggregating those accounts, placing them properly, putting those dollars where they should be when we've got the opportunity to take control.
Yeah, certainly do. It's, one of the biggest things that we probably do in our practice is, that rollover into traditional IRAs for pre-retirees, retirees, folks with, multiple plans spaced all over the different companies throughout their working career. When we say aggregate them together, doesn't mean they have to go into the same investment mix, but, if you have, one active 401k and 2 that are dormant sitting out there, well, they're probably in just a handful of mutual funds that you have the ability to put them in anyway. So if you roll them over, which is a non-taxable event, into a traditional IRA, that's what we call a direct rollover, goes from the 401k directly into an IRA, a non-taxable event. And then you have a much broader investment environment that you can pick where to place your nest egg.
Well, if you would like some help and assistance with 401k rollovers, placing those properly, balancing the accounts appropriately, making sure that your dollars are working to help you achieve your future financial and retirement goals, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 1194, 800-868-1194. Feature number 2 that we want to discuss on the program in our discussion of 401ks, and a true advantage here, Chris, the match opportunity. It's dubbed free money. So where else are we going to get free money, right?
Oh, buddy, I'm telling you, and I'm self-employed. Nobody matches my contributions into my SEP IRA. So if they're giving you free money, why wouldn't you want to take advantage of that? So if you put in 5% of your salary or your compensation into the 401k and they're going to match 5% of that, well, you certainly want to take advantage of all of that, because that's money for nothing. And I'm a
Dire Straits would be proud.
Yeah, I'm a huge Dire Straits fan here too.
Absolutely. Chris, we have to put some skin in the game to get the match. And I know there are a couple different types of contributions made by the company on behalf of employees, safe harbor, profit share, but where there's a match on the table, we should probably be taking full advantage by being serious about our financial futures ourselves and contributing at least enough to capture any match on the table, because where else are we going to get that kind of immediate guaranteed return on investment?
Yeah. And for those of you out there that are, big Roth IRA fans, I still tell folks, look, they're giving you free money. If your employer's only got the traditional 401k side of things, who wants to turn down the free money? And then you can start working and doing your Roth IRA things, which is tax-free in the future. Not every company has Roth 401k ability, and you can't get the match on a Roth 401k anyway.
Well, if a company does contribute money, Chris, they're not going to be nice enough to pay your taxes for you. So that money, even if you have a Roth 401k, the match money is always going to be tax deferred and taxed later on into the future in retirement, correct?
That is correct, Peter. Yep.
Well, again, the match, a big opportunity and advantage, ladies and gentlemen, and the reason and incentive a lot of people begin their 401k contributions. And then, Chris, nice segue into our next topic and potential advantage is the question of to defer or not to defer. More and more companies are offering us the opportunity for traditional tax deferred contributions to 401ks, where we get a deduction today for what we contribute, or the Roth 401k opportunity. Can you talk to us about the difference and the benefits and disadvantage of each?
Sure. It's kind of a pay me now or pay me later scenario, and it depends on the individual's tax status. So let's say, let's take it to the extreme. Let's say we've got a husband and a wife both working, making significant money, say like $250,000 a year. Hey, they may be better off with that traditional 401k and not paying the tax, at 24 or 28% now, and going into the traditional 401k. And then eventually when they retire, or when one of them maybe retires earlier, then they could look at moving money and putting it into the Roth 401k, where you cannot deduct the contributions, but in the future, your withdrawals will be income tax free. So, and who knows where income tax rates are going to be in the future. If I was to ask the people listening to the show or watching the podcast today is, where do you think taxes are going to go, up or down?
Up.
Overwhelmingly, people say they're going to go up. And in fact, in 2026, the tax cuts that were initiated under President Trump will sunset, and they will go from 12% to the 15% tax bracket, from the 22 to the 25% tax bracket. So taxes are set to increase, and that's not a political argument. That's just the way that taxes work. They're only so set for 10 years. They have to be renewed or increased or decreased.
Well, pay me now or pay me later. That's the option there if you have the Roth opportunity. And Chris, to arrive at a conclusion, it sounds like it takes some number crunching. Again, a service that you help people calculate and work through and try to arrive at some informed conclusions on there at McIntire Retirement Services.
Yeah, we certainly do. We have that fiduciary responsibility to help manage people's assets, which means, transparency. No, we do not get compensated for making transactions, buying and selling, if you will. And then we have a very wide open platform and look at all different types of investment vehicles, depending on what we're looking to do. Are we building an income portfolio or are we building a growth portfolio? Combination of the two, depending on the particular the individual's particular set of circumstances.
Well, if you'd like to crunch the numbers on managing your tax liability on those 401k dollars or your employer sponsored retirement plan contributions and what they will mean for you in the future, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire at McIntire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. So we talked about the automatic, systematic, done on a regular basis nature of the 401k. And it seems like they have tried to put a sub-automatic option feature inside of the 401k with these target date funds. Now, in theory, Chris, they seem like a good concept and good idea. Can you talk to us about the benefits and disadvantages of utilizing target date funds or the life cycle funds inside of our 401k?
Sure. It's a target date when somebody thinks, hey, I'm going to retire in the year 2035, for example. So that portfolio is going to adjust over time and get more conservative as you get closer to that 2035. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to get out of the market, the stock market, by any stretch. It's certainly going to shift from more stocks to the fixed income side of things, or the bond elements, if you will. And so that can be a good thing. Look, it's set to do this as you get older, okay? But it's not set to do that because of economic circumstances, only by the calendar. So that's where, sometimes there'll be some critiquing of them. And I would say this year would be a good example of that because, bond prices have come down significantly. And as somebody's getting older, we're putting them into a category of, could be longer duration bonds that are taking a significant discount in their pricing, or a loss, for lack of a better word, for those of you listening to the show. Bonds have had a disappointing year this year, Peter.
Chris, the way I've heard it, a predetermined mix of investments over time rather than any ability to actually adjust for real world conditions. So dry, sunny day, chucking along at the posted speed limit, but when we have a winter storm, ice and snow on the road, still going the posted speed limit, which is not what some people would imagine is the safest thing to do.
Yeah, that's a wonderful analogy right there. I might steal that one from you, Peter.
Feel free, take liberties with it. So, Chris, we talked about the old 401ks that sometimes people leave behind. Another opportunity that we have to take more control of our 401k dollars might be just an age milestone that we reach. Now, most people are aware that at age 59 and a half, the 10% penalty for early withdrawal goes away. But 59 and a half represents another opportunity that actually most people may not be aware of with our 401k and retirement dollars.
Correct. And that would be what we call an in-service distribution or an in-service rollover, if you will. So let's say you've got, $500,000 in your 401k, you've turned 59 and a half, and you would like to look at something different than target date mutual funds like we were just talking about that are ever so popular in today's 401k environment. And, maybe you want to look at some dividend paying stocks. You want to look at, get an annuity of your own that you can turn on for income when you go to retire. Some of them, the sooner you start, the more money you'll get out of them down the road. Any sort of investment mix that you would like to. Maybe you want to get more aggressive, maybe you want to get more conservative, and just a number of different areas that are available in the independent IRA channel that is not in your company sponsored 401k plan.
Again, we have opportunities at certain times to control variables that are outside of our direct control. Market risk, taxation, inflation. These are things that we individually do not have any control over, but there are ways that we can position ourselves to protect against those things. And if you have an old 401k left behind, or you have obtained the age of 59 and a half or above, even if you are still working for a company, making contributions, capturing that company match, it may be an advantage to you to consider that age-based 59.5 in-service direct rollover to take control of those retirement dollars and look at options outside of the plan. If you'd like to see if that is something to consider and evaluate if it's the best thing for you, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call at McIntire Retirement Services, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Speaking of the limited options inside of the plan, Chris, the 401k does give us access to the market, but not a lot of access to the market, not a lot of choice and options. Another kind of double-edged sword or two sides of the coin there.
Yeah, you're right. If somebody said, hey, I'd like to buy some stock in Amazon or General Motors as an example, most of your 401ks are not going to give you individual stock exposure. You're going to have to buy an index mutual fund, for example, or a target date mutual fund. You may have, I suppose if there is a downside or a knock on the traditional 401ks, might be the lack of investment pieces that are available there. Again, if you're over age 59.5, we can assist you in evaluating what you would like to do, and then look at all the different, opportunities that are out there. We use a lot of exchange traded funds, very low cost compared to mutual funds. So a lot of times you can save, somebody, 0.5% on their money, on $500,000, that's $2,500 of their own money just by shifting the type of investment vehicles you're using.
Well, again, if you would like to look at the retirement account that you have set up through your employer, the 401k, the 403b, evaluate if the investment mix that you have currently selected is best and most appropriate to help you achieve and accomplish your goals, or potentially if options outside of the plan would make more sense. Pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, there are a few things here, fees, expenses, costs that do work against us. And most people actually aren't aware of the costs associated with those 401k employer sponsored plans. 60 Minutes is. They did an expose on the hidden costs inside of 401k plans several years back. And since there have been many articles that have tried to educate people on the costs and expenses of their money inside of a 401k.
Yes. And, that's where we get into that lack of transparency sometimes, and, peeling through the layers of prospectuses and, plan arrangements on exactly what is it costing you. Yeah, been a lot of pushback to get some of that transparency out there to the people, the investors in those particular 401ks. And, I don't know what it is. Sometimes Wall Street and transparency can be an oxymoron out there. They don't want you to know how much they're charging.
No, it does seem to be that way. But Chris, again, with the fiduciary responsibility that you have for your clients, that is a conversation that is matter of fact, straightforward, and to the point about what costs and expenses there are associated with working with you and having that advisor-client relationship.
Oh, sure. Yeah. If we can drive down the cost, from an exchange traded fund to a mutual fund, man, it's money directly in the client's pocket. That's a win-win,
Again, if you'd like to get a better handle on the costs and expenses of your investments, your retirement accounts, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call. Another opportunity for you to become more informed and educated about your money. He will help you uncover that with a fee assessment and a risk assessment as well of your current accounts and positions. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Speaking of risk, Chris, we have the benefit of the opportunity for market growth, but it does not always work out as growth because there's risk involved with market-based investments. And as we have seen this year, that can have negative returns. It has derailed some people's progress and can affect our timeline for achieving our goals. Now, we saw downturns before. This is not something new. And with a 401k or investment in the market, we have to be prepared to kind of weather those storms of regular economic cycles, and market downturns may not always be what we want to endure.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. And, I've met with a couple of folks that came to some of our educational events that we host around the area. And they said, I had $1 million, back in November of 2022. And now I've got, 800,000, I wanted to retire. That was my number I want to hang on to. And, trying to help them deal with that emotional side of things. And, especially for folks that are retiring this year, that have already gone out and your nest egg took a hit. And that's an emotional gut check, no question about it. And, we call that sequence risk. And, there are ways to mitigate that. And, please, pick up the telephone, understand what these options are. It's truly in your best interest to look at all the alternatives that are out there toward your regular 60-40, stock bond mixed portfolio that took it on the chin this year. This is a worst year probably in history of the 60-40 portfolio, Peter.
Yeah. A tale of as old as time, Chris. We'll just wait till it comes back. Well, when we are planning on retiring, we may not have that luxury or desire to wait till the market comes back. And Chris, I remember back in the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, there was actually a target date fund. It was a 2010 target date fund that lost a substantial portion of its value just in the near short run term time period before it was intended to allow people to retire. So again, it's a must that we understand the level of risk exposure that we have with that 401k, especially kind of in that retirement red zone.
You're right. And that lifestyle 2025 fund does not mean you're going to have a great lifestyle in 2025. It just means it's adjusting, getting more conservative, but it doesn't mean it certainly isn't eliminating any risk. It probably is adding, interest rate risk by going more into bonds. It might be getting out of some of the stock market risk. But again, this year has been a tough market for the bond investors as well, Peter.
Well, again, if you would like to review and analyze your retirement accounts, your investments, your employer-sponsored company option plan, and the choices that you have within that, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call. Certainly willing to have a conversation with you, help you with an experienced professional eye to review and evaluate all of the choices and options that you have. And if everything is as it should be, give you a pat on the back. If there are certain things that could be tweaked or adjusted, help you pinpoint and identify what those are. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Now, the true rubber meet the road moment, Chris, is that 401ks are intended to build up and accumulate dollars to support us in retirement. Now, good at helping us build and accumulate, not the best tool typically to support us in retirement. They are vehicles that are specifically intended for contributions, not necessarily the most advantageous or best suited for making distributions and taking income. So talk to us about income planning and utilizing these accounts for their intended purpose.
Yeah, if you think of it on the surface that, if you were going to build a retirement savings vehicle for somebody, it would be in the accumulation phase that are going to work with you for a long period of time. And you're going to tailor the investments that are available to the growth or the accumulation phase, not necessarily the income or the distribution phase. In fact, most 401ks, want you to roll that money into an IRA because they're not set up for monthly distributions. They're set up for monthly contributions. And some of them, once you're retired, will say, well, we'll allow you to do one distribution, but it's got to be closed by the end of that transaction. So we'll send you a check, but we'll also need to close the account out at that time. All the different companies work in different ways, but that's what we have seen in the past is that, yep, we'll let you do a distribution, but you only get one and we have to close the account by the time it's all done. So again, pay you some money and then maybe roll over the rest into an IRA. And again, they got the 20% mandatory federal income tax withholding. And, if you're in a 12% tax bracket, federal income tax bracket, why withhold 20%? They don't give you any money on that.
Well, again, kind of where the financial world may not be as transparent as it should be. Here, ladies and gentlemen, your 401k, your retirement account, asterisks in fine print, not intended for retirement, not a dependable source of income, may have unintended consequences. You need to understand all of this, ladies and gentlemen, to make the best use of one of the best tools that we do have available to us to build and accumulate the wealth, the money to support our lifestyle and confidence and standard of living into and throughout retirement, to make sure you're making the most and getting the most out of each and every dollar. Understand and educate yourself on the different aspects of the different features, benefits, and the potential drawbacks of your 401k. Chris McIntire can help you out with that and provide that education. Pick up the phone and give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Beyond the education, the application to your specific account, your choices, your options, and how those will impact and affect your financial future, the financial and retirement review and strategy session, a forensic financial accounting and report on all of your investments and retirement accounts, helping you understand the fees that you're paying, the risks that you're taking, the taxes that you would be liable for in the future. Chris McIntire helps to bring that all together in your game plan for retirement. No cost, no obligation, just set up a time to speak with Chris. Give a call now, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, always a pleasure. Great topic of conversation, important topic, covering 401ks.
Hey, my pleasure. Good to be with everybody. Have a nice weekend out there. Thank you for listening, guys.
Visit McIntyreRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Indexed or fixed annuities are not designed for short-term investments and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract.